Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Persian and The Cowboy podcast. As always, he's the Persian, I'm the Cowboy. And today we're going to be discussing the House hearing that we had on the UFO sightings that have been going on for the last 60 plus years. And there's some compelling evidence out there now. Mr. Persian, any opening thoughts on this, or do you want to just jump right into the details?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you have to be a moron with a peanut-sized brain to think that extraterrestrials, alien life, and UFOs are not really real. Like, the universe is so huge, our animal-sized brains can't really even, think about it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just...
incomprehensible.
It's infinite. You know, we have multiple galaxies. There could be, other things out there that we can't even fathom as a human race. Like, we're in our infancy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So all this stuff coming out with today's technology and everything, I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, how can you not believe this? 99% of these UFO sightings, at least 20% of them have to be real.
Well, and it's a lot of the times too, it could be our own aircraft that we're just trying to figure out how to use. The experimental aircraft by the United States government is the excuse.
No doubt.
Everyone's going to float all the time. But also, it's just, why would we assume that aliens are interested in even coming to the Earth in the first place, too?
Well, I mean, before we get into the facts of what took place 2 weeks ago, I mean, if you're traveling through the universe at speeds that we can't comprehend, you're not trying to travel to a planet to obliterate that species. You're trying to explore. You're an explorer. Uh-huh. Like back in the day, when the human beings were crossing the oceans, going to the New World, they're coming through different parts of space to analyze space, to find out what's going on with the different parts of the galaxies, and they're traveling at speeds that we're not going to even get to in a long time. I mean, some of these species could be thousands of years ahead of us, tens of thousands of years. They're using portals to come here. They're using wormholes to come here. So at the end of the day, to me, I think they're just trying to understand what's going on. And we're going to dabble into some of the theories and what's happening, but it's just so fascinating that this is finally taking shape.
Yeah, one of the theories I heard that I kind of liked, actually, was that maybe we're just a nature preserve for species. Like, we're a protected environment, kind of like we do on Earth here, where there's places that you can't go and species you can't mess around with or hunt or do anything like that. And so that's why they're being all secretive around Earth, is because they're not allowed to come here. The Galactic Empire said, Earth is a
preserve.
Yeah, maybe
everything should be on the table.
Maybe we're cute and adorable animals that they're using as like a little zoo that they come look at every now and then or something.
Well,
too.
It's very fascinating because before, and again, we're going to outline everything that took place, but it's very interesting that around military installations that have nuclear material or nuclear technologies, they've been seeing UFO phenomena, UAP phenomena since the 1940s, 50s, since they've been working, and even in the 1930s, they've been seeing UFO phenomena, and extraterrestrials and intelligent life have been coming to this planet for God knows how long. I mean, there's documentation in ancient texts and hieroglyphics
we'll not get into
and things like that, but
too much.
But just within this last century, I mean, there have been so many weird sightings all over the world at different installations. And when we dropped the 2 bombs on Japan, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, there was a huge uptick in extraterrestrial UFO sightings all over the world because of the nuclear technology. And then the prime example that I gave in an earlier episode was that in the 1950s, during the Cold War and the arms race and the nuclear situation between the United States and the old Soviet Union, was that in the Palm Springs desert, there was a convention with Dwight Eisenhower and his political party, and how he abruptly left in the middle of the night with a couple hundred military officials, and they went to a secret base in the middle of the Mojave Desert, and they met with beings who were not human. Mm-hmm. They were from another world, and they talked with them through telepathy, and all these accounts have been given by people on their deathbeds who were the former military officials, and they said that these folks looked Scandinavian. They were very Scandinavian-like people, very tall, long hair, blondish, whitish, grayish hair, deep blue eyes, and they talked through a telepathy with us and told us to basically knock this nuclear shit off because you're changing time and space.
Yeah.
So, and to wrap up this particular thing that I'm talking about, and they told them that we will give you technologies to improve on one another. So it's fascinating.
It's really interesting with that, and I think we should dive into some of the more details we found.
Dive into the so give us the breakdown here.
I'll break it down real quick. And so, the first thing was, so the National Security Subcommittee are the ones that called for this hearing, and it was on the UAPs, as they're now called. UFOs have been upgraded to UAPs. Which is unidentified anomalous phenomena. So I think it's just a broader term of like, we don't know what the hell's going on.
Unidentified aerial phenomena or whatever.
Yeah, my research, I saw anomalous. So I mean, even vaguer, I guess.
Yeah.
If it's aerial, because I guess some of these are going underwater too. The Congress members that I was able to find there were Mr. Glenn. What was he? The chairman was Mr. Glenn Grothman from Wisconsin, Mr. Tim Burchett from Tennessee, Miss Ann Luna from Florida, Jared Moskowitz from Florida, and then Robert Garcia from California, as well as AOC, were kind of the more prominent characters that were at this one.
Yeah.
And, I sat down and watched a full 2-hour hearing on this.
Yeah, that was long.
So it was pretty crazy, man. But there were some eye-opening moments of the whole thing. So
it was very concerning.
Oh, absolutely. And so the key witnesses that they'd called forward were 3 men, all of who had military experience and served in the military. The first one was Ryan Graves, and he was he's now the executive director for Americans for Safe Aerospace.
Yeah.
And he was an F-18 pilot. And
He was a gentleman who was bald on the. He's a bald-headed gentleman.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the F-18 pilot.
Yeah, there are 2, I believe, F-18 pilots, but yes. So that was the first one, and then. So F-18 pilot saw UAPs out there, and I think he was the one from Virginia Beach. Yeah, so I think this is the younger guy.
Dude,
actually.
His account was kind of like, it made me anxious to hear that. It was very bizarre.
Well, one of the things he mentioned in his testimony, of course sworn testimony too, is that the UAPs were so prevalent, they started talking about them in their pre-flight routine, that they're just going to be seeing these things out there off of Virginia Beach out into the ocean.
And it's 20 miles from the coast of Virginia Beach, and for years they've been seeing these things, not just 1 or 2, they're seeing fleets of UAPs. Mm-hmm. So there has to be something either in the water or an underwater alien base or some sort of portal, because they kept seeing these orbs and these unidentified flying objects, and they would fly next to them too, and they wouldn't have a situation where it was adversarial or like a threat. They were just observing them, and they were moving in weird formations.
Yeah, there was one point in the testimony when someone asked if anyone had been hurt by these things, and they gave a very vague response back saying, I can't really say that into public hearing, but I can tell you that in private more so, and give you the details on it. So it's I don't know if it's a non-adversarial situation in some of the circumstances, but
the main guy who had his testimony, David Goresh.
Yeah. So a little background on him first.
Give him background on this guy.
Yeah. So let me I'll go through all 3 of them. So
do your thing.
Ryan Graves was the first guy we were talking about, and he's now the executive director for Americans for Safe Aerospace. He was an ex-F-18 pilot, witnessed this stuff outside of Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach, yeah. He was the younger guy that was there. And his thing is, I don't know what these things are, but we need to be able to talk about them without fear of ridicule, because a lot of pilots are seeing this.
It's a national security risk.
Exactly, and that's his main point. The next guy was the older pilot, and he was...
San Diego, right?
Yeah, outside of for the U.S. Navy, David Fravor, yes. And
yes, he's my favorite one.
He was the former commander and officer for the Black Aces Squadron, and out on the Pacific side. So they're seeing the same thing on the West Coast and the East Coast, describing both of these things. He's got a very long description for it, and he got up close to see these things move around, and back in like 2004. So,
yeah, and it's been very hush-hush until like a decade later in the mid to 2010s, he started finally getting some people to believe him.
Yeah, when they unclassified everything finally. So, so that was kind of his testimony was on description as well. He's just talking about the stuff he saw live. But then the star witness, this guy is the David Grush that we were talking about, that you mentioned earlier. So he's the former National Reconnaissance Officer and Representative. Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena Task Force. So he works, he's ex-U.S. Navy, and he was in the, not a Navy, U.S. Air Force.
Yeah.
And so he was in the U.S. Air Force, what was it? The intelligence officer for the U.S. Air Force for 14 years.
Yeah.
So he got some pretty high clearances in his whole process. And from 2019 to 2021, he was a member of the UAP task force. So he was going through and reviewing all the documents from like
Scary
back and forever
shit.
till like now. And then in 2022, he came forward as a whistleblower for the to talk to Congress and to be like, hey, there's some sketchy shit going on back here. They're using some like mafia bullying tactics to keep all this stuff hush hush. And so he came forward and talked about it, and that's when the press got blown over the lid, and that's what started everything to this point now, where they had the public hearing for it. So,
well, and that's the crazy part. I mean, you broke it down beautifully about what happened. So, a couple weeks ago, there was this hearing about unidentified flying objects, extraterrestrial life, UAPs, UFOs, the whole nine. So these three gentlemen that the cowboy was talking about, especially, and we can go in order, but the one gentleman, David Koresh, that guy's testimony was insane.
Yeah.
He basically could not provide clear answers on certain things. He said, I can talk to you guys in a closed setting about this. A couple of the Congress folks had asked him a question, have UAPs ever hurt anybody from the military? And he said, I cannot answer that question, but I will say that there has been many cases of our military folks who have been compromised in some sort. Then the most crazy one was that.
Can I touch on that one real quick
on that
first?
one, yeah.
So the full question was, has anyone been hurt by the UAPs or the government in trying to hush them up?
Right.
And he said that he can't comment on the UAP part of it, but like he said, he's seen the government go after some people to try to hush
and that was the other separate part of the question.
Yeah, which that was crazy.
That was crazy.
Sorry,
but
go on to your next
you're
one,
good,
though.
Cowboy. You're good. But so his testimony when the female congresswoman had asked him directly, have you recovered any UFOs or UAP that have been downed or have crashed? And he said, yes, we have vehicles that we have in our possession that the U.S. military is holding in secret installations. And her follow-up question was, have you seen any pilots in those craft? He didn't specifically say pilots, but he said, yes, we have recovered biologics, which means bodies.
And that's exactly the terminology he used. He said
biologics.
Non-human biologics was like his full statement. And that was the eye-opening thing of like, holy crap, aliens are out there and they're real apparently. At least according to the documentation that he's gone through as a U.S. Air Force intelligence agent. That's just mind-boggling.
For somebody to be talking about this in a live setting with politicians and is nationally televised, this is a very big deal. This is a game changer, not only for us, but as a race, as a species, because it's almost like then the funny, not the funny part, but then the really interesting part came with defense contractors.
Oh yeah,
and how they are dabbling in this to get the first right of refusal, basically, on the technology, and they are trying to replicate the technology that they are uncovering with the U.S. military, and they're working together on how they can replicate it.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you should do that.
Yeah, you should try to reverse engineer these things if they
But they can't. I mean, it's so advanced that it's like mind-boggling for them. So he said there has been some nefarious activities by defense contractors regarding these unidentified flying objects that they've recovered.
Yeah, and so let's break down the physics a little bit. The first or the second guy's description that was off on the west coast of it.
Yes, I cannot wait to talk about this one.
Yeah, so David Fravor, so he was the commander of his squadron, and so he had his wingman stay up high, and he went down in to check this thing out. And he was saying that it looks like a
Tic Tac.
A Tic Tac, but it's like a gray cube surrounded by like a white orb is how they've always described these things. And the way that it's moving is there's no wings, there doesn't seem to be any propulsion system on it at all.
No windows.
It just accelerates. And the rate at which it's accelerating would kill any human that's inside of it based on, the laws of physics that we know them as right now. So either they're drones that are unmanned or there are people in them using acceleration techniques that we do not even understand.
Well, it's probably a combination of both, because they say that these things are probably drones or probes, and they're monitoring the planet. They're probably taking pictures, or they're probably observing the planet and taking data, or there could be actual pilots in there. But the thing was, with this situation off the coast of San Diego, for 20 minutes, they were like, this Tic Tac was really fucking with these two pilots and was moving in directions that human beings can't do in a manned vehicle. And then it was the speeds that you mentioned.
Yeah.
It was mind-boggling. They didn't even know what to think of it. And then the Tic Tac stopped, it hovered, and then it went into the ocean.
Yeah.
So, and then they tried to explain this to their commanders back on the ship, and they laughed at them. They're like, what? And this cylinder, it was a Tic Tac with no windows, with no propulsion, no wings, no engines, and no windows. It was just clear, and it was just going like this, and then it just plunged into the ocean.
Yeah, and then also it came from like 80,000 feet up too. Is one of the counts I was reading, that just it has an 80,000 feet. You're up in space at that point.
Yeah.
So it's just, how the hell is it able to maneuver like that at like a low altitude, but then also shoot straight up into the air to get up to 80,000 feet? Like, what's supporting it? What
like,
is this,
how does this even happen?
What is this drive system? Is it a gravity drive? Is it a gravity gun or something that it can just like pull it in every direction it wants to go? Like, it's just crazy.
Well, and the testimony of Mr. Graves too, the Virginia Beach pilot, he was saying that for years they've been seeing so many UAPs and UFOs all over 20 miles of into the ocean by Virginia Beach, that they're saying there's like squadrons of these things.
Yeah, just crazy.
And the thing is, like, whatever entity this is, whether it's an intelligent life or something that we can't comprehend, they're not adversarial. Mm-hmm. Because if they were adversarial, they would have want to wipe us out. You know what I'm saying? Because
if they had this technology and they wanted to take us down, they probably could. Like,
but the thing is, like, they don't want to do this. They're observing us, and they know that we are a very elementary species. We're not ready for this kind of travel. We're not ready mentally. We're not ready as a race to go, because if you want to travel through interstellar space, you have to be very advanced. Like, you cannot be like us, selfish.
The technology doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, but also
get from one place to the other place.
Not yet, but like, we are not ready as a species. We have so many issues on this planet, whether it's about greed, about money, about oil. We're killing each other for water, natural gas, oil. These people have already passed that. Whoever these things are, they've probably already gone through that thousands of years ago, and they've already evolved as a species.
Yeah.
They've already evolved. They probably even shed their own, like, bodies, and they've become like beams of light, or they become artificially intelligent. Mm-hmm. Like, we don't know what we're dealing with, and there's not just one species. There could be tens of thousands, even millions of species who have visited this planet, and we don't know. But maybe these guys all have an agreement with one another, like a federation of planets, that, hey, we're not going to fuck with these people. We're just observing them, and when they're ready, then we'll reach out officially. But there is something going on, and you can't discount it. Yeah,
and it's interesting when David Grush was finally pushed back on, like, hey, like, the things you're describing are physically impossible. Like, what do you expect us to believe? Like, how the hell is this actually happening? Then he gave an explanation of multiple dimensions.
Yeah, he said that, which was extremely confusing. Like, I had to watch it again.
I understand his metaphor that he was using for it, because you can have something in 3 dimensions that's projected onto a 2-dimension sphere, and it's a theory of like we live in a more than a 3 or 4-dimensional world, but just based on our perception, that's all we're able to see are the 3 dimensions. But there's so many more that we just haven't figured out how to travel back and forth in between. And so that was a theory he was presenting of like, that's how they're traveling from light years away to here. But it came off as just kind of a theory. And I was kind of like, where did you, because I want, like, as the engineer, I want to know how this technology is working. Like, this is
if we can
cool.
figure that out, it's going to be a huge game changer for us as a species. It opens the door to interstellar space. It opens the door to a lot of things and advances us, but we're still not there to comprehend it because we can't replicate the technology. Our intelligence is not there yet. But he did talk about that. And there's been other accounts from other folks in the military, scientists that have said a lot of these species are traveling through portals. Well,
that's kind of how it would be if you're, traveling
gateways, portals, wormholes,
different dimensions. Is what they would say.
And then it comes the whole theory about time and space and all that stuff. They were saying that
it gets super hypothetical, And so if there are multiple dimensions and we just don't know how to access them, then that could create shortcuts to different places across the universe.
Well, there's got to be a way. it's not just about speed and technology. It's also about you have to have some sort of shortcut to travel because these are big distances.
So we could talk hypotheticals for a long time on this. But another thing that David Grush brought up was that the U.S. government is actively covering up the videos of these things.
Oh, they are.
And they take, someone gets an iPhone video of it, it becomes a top secret video, they collect it and just shut it down immediately.
They're doing this because they do not want people knowing about this because the whole system is going to collapse. Mm-hmm. The whole governing system, the way we do business, the way our society is set up is going to collapse. Like if we finally have the proof, and we have evidence, but if we finally have definitive proof and evidence that these things exist, it's going to change everything. It opens our realm to something that we don't even know about. And that's why the government is very, very, very anxious about this because they don't want people getting access to this unless you're in the government. And with these whistleblowers, too, that are blowing the whistle, these guys are also anxious for their safety because the government, as Garesh was saying, has been involved in mafia-type tactics and second and third world tactics of eliminating people who know about these things.
Yeah.
So that is very concerning.
Just like everyone close to the Clintons,
Yeah, if you're close to the Clintons, you're going to get clipped. Well, Obama with that shift, too.
Well, and that's something very true, or it's just... later on in the testimony, they were talking. I'll give AOC credit on this one. She was up there and everyone already asked the details at this point, and she just asked, where is the money going into these programs? Where in the budget line do I need to look to figure out where the hell this cover-up is being funded through? And Grush was like, well, I can't tell you that right here, but I have sent you documents that can tell you exactly where to look and what questions to ask to who. And to me, I was like looking at that just so upset because it was someone explaining to the government how the government operates. And it's complete confirmation. Even if the alien stuff is bullshit and it's just U.S. technology that is super advanced and we've been trying to keep hush-hush from the world, it confirms that there is a secret government working inside of the normal government. And
Absolutely there
and
is.
The elected officials are not doing...
Puppets.
They don't know a damn thing about how the true operations of the government are
puppets.
happening.
At the end of the day, these people that we vote for in Congress or the Senate, the governorships, or the presidency are not the real leaders. These are people who are television puppets. The actual people that are running the governments around the world are an elite group of people, extreme rich, extreme wealthy, and very powerful people in high positions who are doing this. And they're doing it because they do not want people to know what's really going on. They don't want to know, they don't want people knowing, hey, we have technology that could advance us tens of thousands of years, and we don't want you guys to know. And also the money that's coming for all these defense contracts and everything, the real money is being used for something else.
Yeah, and that's what he was saying. It's
Yeah.
like it's a black box expense account that these guys are just pulling things from, and so it's just we expect Congress to be able to balance a budget when they don't even know what they're approving or not approving.
And that's concerning.
I know it's so frustrating and upsetting. We need to get rid of the secret government and let the elected officials operate the government.
And I agree with you, Cowboy.
As it was intended to be run from the very beginning. But now it has been the CIA, the FBI, the Pentagon, the NSA. They all have a hand in this. They all have these secret government contracts out there. They're all spying on American citizens, assassinating people, having these secret wars all over the world.
Oh, well,
it's infuriating because the American people don't know, and the elected officials, our government,
they don't know.
They don't know
either.
They
don't know either.
Yeah.
These guys are just people that we elect to check a box. The real people that are running the government are people that we don't even know.
Yeah.
They are elites. They are very wealthy. They are people in high positions. They are people that have access to things that we don't have access to, and they want to keep things hush. And the final thing is, Cowboy, which is very terrifying, is that these are folks that are willing to eliminate fellow American citizens through means of force or other means to keep things quiet. And it will continue happening and happening and happening for the foreseeable future. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, and that was kind of my last thought you're touching on right there. So this is another conspiracy theory that's been proven plausible, I'd say. We don't know. We know these things are out there floating around now. We don't know if they're government, U.S. government or foreign or what, but we know that this exists and people should be allowed to talk about it. But so what other conspiracy, we found out that Pedophile Island was a real thing with the piece of shit Epstein.
Absolutely.
And then we found out the JFK assassination bullshit, and why are they still covering that up?
A dark agency within the government killing the president.
So that happened. Now we're figuring out that UFOs are real.
Oh, yeah.
And so what else is the government hiding from the American people?
They're hiding a lot of things. They're hiding many things that we can't even fathom, but there are agencies within our government that are not being promoted, that we don't know about, that are really running the show. Yeah. Dark agencies. I mean, let's go back to the UFO conversation. I'm a firm believer these things exist. Now, many of the UFO sightings can be fake, can be, for clickbait, whatever, but many of them are real. And the situation is this: human beings, since human beings have been here, have had contact with beings not from this planet. Some of these beings may have helped us in the beginning to get our civilization started. We have, texts about this, ancient texts. We have markings around the planet with pyramids and things like that that are just unfathomable to understand how ancient humans could have done this. And people have very generic explanations, but there still doesn't make sense. You have the situation with the Cold War, with the nuclear tension and the testings that really brought a lot of this phenomena out because they were observing us. And I actually do think that there are potential alien species who are involved in governing our planet and work with governments directly. Now, how do they communicate? I don't know, maybe through telepathy, maybe through other means, but they are involved in this technology that we're seeing right now. Maybe some of these UFOs are actually manned by human pilots, but are alien technology that we've replicated, and they're just messing with our military to see how we would respond to such a thing like that. And it could be a combination of both. I think it's aliens visiting our planet. Could be us working with them, these dark agencies working with extraterrestrial beings. I mean, you have places like Area 51, who you have people who have worked there who have later come out and said, we have non-human beings that are placed in this installation. We have biologics that are being preserved, that are dead, and we also have folks that are here that are non-human that we have placed here from crashed UFOs.
Well, there's a past engineer, actually, that's claims to have worked at Area 51.
Bob Lazar?
I don't know if that was him. I saw him on Joe Rogan a while back.
I think that's the guy.
Yeah, but the way he described he was trying to reverse engineer the engine or whatever the energy source was from one of these spaceships.
It's nuts.
And so the way he described how it moved and how it worked is pretty consistent with what the testimonies were like from these guys that had seen these things flying around out in real life. And yeah, he was saying that something along the lines of there's an element that has a ton of protons in it that we've replicated in labs, but we've never been able to make it stable. It always deteriorates like immediately after and then falls apart. But they've figured out the right number of neutrons that need to be in that core to get it to stabilize or something, and now they're trying to reproduce it, and that's where the energy source comes from. To me, I'm just like, I don't really understand how the hell that can happen.
We fathom this?
Yeah, I know.
It's so interesting and also bizarre and also concerning because these things are here and they're literally observing us on an everyday basis. I mean, I'm a firm believer there are extraterrestrial bases on this planet, like in our deep oceans.
It's possible. So there's one other theory that I thought of with this that could explain it as well, is that maybe the U.S. government, like, why would they time the release of this information right now? Maybe one, it could be because like everyone's floating out the idea like, hey, this is just a distraction from the stuff that the Democrats are doing in office.
Oh, it's an absolute distraction. It's real, but it's an absolute distraction. I agree with you.
It totally is, but I also, that's why my main takeaway is that this just exposes the secret government that's already working within it, and I think that's important for us to talk about. But we can talk about this and still talk about the other stuff that's going on as well, too. But my thought was, if the war with Russia is going on, and we're potentially going to be in World War III pretty soon, and we're trying to calm tensions down, it might be kind of a way of beating our chest and being like, hey, we got this alien technology that no one comprehends just sitting in some lab somewhere that we could use against the rest of the world and take you guys down.
Oh, I would do it in a heartbeat if I was president. If I could get my hands on it, I would do it.
But maybe it's just a scare tactic that we're using to intimidate our enemies, and that now is the time that we can just drop the information out if we wanted to.
It is a distraction for sure. I mean, you see what's going on with the Democrats and the Hunter Biden situation. I mean, the political landscape is very rocky right now. You look at the Democrat Party, the whole Hunter Biden plea deal has fallen apart. And you have all this corruption with deals that the Biden family has secured, whether it was in Ukraine with Burisma, that company, and how Hunter Biden was a chairman, but was on the board, I should say, but has no experience in that field.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
And you see all the deals the Biden family has secured through foreign investments, like in China, tens of millions of dollars, and how all this is coming out.
Watch our episode on Hunter Biden and his rant that he has, yes.
So, but anyways, I mean, you see that. And then you see what's going on with Trump and all the indictments, the phony indictments that are coming out about him. Every week somebody wants to indict him in a different city, and he's high in the polls, and basically they want to put him in jail like a second and third world country because they know he's going to win, but they want to silence him by putting him in jail. Very un-American, but I guess it's going on with the secret government that we're exposing now. But there's a lot of turbulence. You look at the world, what's happening with Russia, with China, with Iran, with North Korea, and the global tensions there. You look at what's happening with inflation here in the United States. The world economy is very fragile. You have interest rates going up in the United States every few months, and it's starting to hurt American families even more, with the middle class. I mean, you have cost of goods is going up. You have a lot of things, and then it's just so funny that all of a sudden, we've always known this, but all of a sudden now in 2023, this is coming out. Doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. Something bigger is going on, and the government is trying to silence this. But with regard to this whole UFO, UAP conversation, there is a dark government within our government that is calling the shots on this.
Yeah, and I think that's the most troubling thing
scary.
to me. It upsets me quite a bit, just, with someone that believes in our democracy and our republic that we have set up. How can we control our government if the government doesn't even know what the government is?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I think our democracy when it was formed by the founding fathers, didn't intend for stuff like this to happen, And it's a different time period, Technology is completely different now. Human beings are different in the thought process, but we are a democracy, a modern democracy, like the world beacon, but it doesn't feel like that anymore. It doesn't. And that's what really deflates me. It almost feels like we're just a democracy on paper, but really we're not, because our country is like a corporate dictatorship. You have corporations running the show. You have politicians who are in bed with these corporations, who are in bed with foreign agencies, who are not working for us anymore. It just feels that the people that we vote for, and it's never been like that. It's always been like that. Like, we think that the people that we vote for are for our best interest. That's not true. We vote to vote because we think we are, but these people are the same pieces of garbage. Like, they're willing to throw away their career and sell their own mother for an extra $200K a month from some company so they can peddle products. And it's the same in regards to this, not to go off on a tangent, but it's pretty same relationship with this situation, with this whistleblower stuff. Like, there's got to be something going on with the defense contractors and the possession they have of these craft, and it just doesn't make sense to me. It does not make sense.
Something's up. Something's very fishy. It doesn't make any sense at all, and I hope that we get the information that we deserve. I think, and I say this all the time, the American people are stronger than the government thinks we are. And if you give us the full information and are honest and open with us, we'll rise to the occasion. We're not going to tear down society because aliens are real. We're going to tear down society because our government has been lying to us and manipulating us and trying to control us. But if you give us the freedom that we want and desire as Americans, then we're going to be able to rise to the occasion and fulfill the American dream from there.
Well, yeah, and I think that the government is very afraid of the process of having people know that this is true, because to them, it's going to crumble their system. It's going to crumble the things that they are trying to control.
Yeah.
Because, to be honest, if this is true, which it is true, and, it's going to change the human race for the better, I think. It's going to advance us to heights that we've never seen before. It could help us technologically. It could help us with our societal problems. It could help us with our, longevity. It's going to change everything.
Well, it's one way to unite people too.
Yeah.
Is to have a foreign adversary that we, could be potentially hostile that we got to fight off together. So that's something that could bring us together as humans, is knowing that, hey, even though our differences exist, we're still all humans. So.
Well, I'll give you an example. I mean, as a fan of Star Trek, there was in the storyline of Star Trek, what happened was in this decade, like starting, I think, in the late 2020s or the early 2030s, all the way to the 2070s, 80s, there's a massive World War III that's happened on the planet.
Yeah.
It has decimated the planet. 80% of the population has died. Plants and animals are pretty much extinct. The planet's fucked up. Mm-hmm. But this scientist somehow creates this technology for warp technology to travel in interstellar space. And the guy's based in Montana. And then basically this scientist, Zephyrin Cochrane was his name, launches this thing into space. And as soon as the warp signature from the engine travels in space, literally 5 minutes later, 3 alien aircraft come down, which are the Vulcan species, and they meet with humans. This particular species basically unites the humans together to form one world government, and they basically help humans over the next couple hundred years to rebuild Earth and its society. And it was for the better for the people of Earth, because they destroyed each other.
Yeah, I don't know if that's exactly what would happen, or who knows. It's an interesting time that we live in, and I hope that we get more and more information and more transparency about this stuff, because it's fascinating, and I think as the American people, we deserve answers.
Well, everybody
about what
deserves it. I mean,
do.
everybody around the planet deserves the truth and the absolute idea that we are not alone. And I mean, just in general, we are not alone. I mean, there's so many things going out there in the universe. I mean, we're not the only ones on this dinky little rock. There are infinite species of life out there. And I'm sure tens of thousands or even millions of species have visited us over time. But the question is, why is the government covering this up? what is the benefit of covering it up? And we've already discussed why they're probably covering it up. And 3, why not be transparent and open us to new heights? Because this could help us evolve as a species and for the better.
Yeah. Unless it's something that we still just don't understand, but I don't know.
And I think it's partly because we don't understand, but also the government's trying to benefit off this and monetize it.
Control the people. Yeah. Well, I think that's about all the time we have right now. Is there anything else? Any final closing thoughts, Mr. Persian?
The closing that I have is that, release more of these UAP videos. Let's get the biologics on the table. I want to see it live on national TV. I want to see the biologics. Cut it open. Let's see this extraterrestrial. It's real. There's installations throughout the world like Area 51, the Denver airport that are very weird, that have things like this underground. So it's only going to come out every day, every year, and every century that we are on this planet. We're going to have more and more of these things come out.
Beautifully said. And with that, he's the Persian. I'm the Cowboy. Thanks, y'all.
Cheers, folks.
Cheers.